Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Strix 4090 block from Bitspower. Of course, this also fits the TUF since they use the same PCB. I have the block here and the backplate block. So these are sold separately. So I'm going to quickly unbox them and then we're going to put them on the Strix 4090. And in terms of performance, I won't be able to address it in this video, but the build this will be going to, I will cover it from there. If I publish this video prior to completing that build, then I will have the results in that build video. If not, then I will publish this assembly video and the temperature at the same time. So in the box, you get the card. You get the not the card. You get the block itself. It does come with the black backplate. Um, I've told the CEO of Bitspower that I don't like these kind of George Foreman grill backplates. Um, I get why they do them for in terms of heat dissipation, but I think in terms of aesthetics, considering there's not much heat on a lot of 4090s, etc., um, I don't think we need this kind of a design. But nonetheless, it is included with the block, so that's always a good move. That's pretty hefty. If you were to, I don't know if this is screwed on. This is screwed on, so I'm going to take it off to show you guys in a second. Okay, but let's take a look at the block once more real quick. You have a plexi terminal. This terminal has two ports on the back, right? No ports on the front. So this is a rear port facing GPU block. You can see the thermal pads actually through the block. And I don't know if you can tell, but there's a pad right here. On the top it says GeForce RTX, and you have an RGB strip that runs along the bottom in this mirror finish chrome-ish kind of thing. I do have a top light, which is why you're seeing a reflection of a camera, etc. But I want to show you here. Maybe that's a better look at what it looks like. The acrylic is extremely clear. It's literally like looking through glass. Okay. So, and elsewise, you get Allen wrenches in the box, and you get some screws. I'm not too sure what these screws. Oh, these screws are for the rest of the screws for the block. There's not that many. Okay. So, and then just nothing. All right. So let's take a look at the back. This is the backplate that replaces that backplate. This is the active backplate. And in the box, it came a little better. I had taken it out. That's why it looks kind of loose in there. These, you can notice it pretty much replaces the rear terminal and it comes together in kind of like a huge sandwich. Okay. So you have in out, in out. Okay. So you have multiple choices there. And you'll notice that the pads are already pre-applied. You just have to peel and stick. So that's always nice to see. Pre-applied pads is probably the best scenario. Saves you a lot of time. And you can see pretty much just does some of the power delivery components on the rear. All right, this is sold separately. Okay, so aside from that, you get install tools, the wrenches, and you get some screws, right? And you get, what is this? The really long screw for the terminal. Okay, so as with most BP things, the instructions are not in the box. You go on their website, you find the corresponding product, you'll have the installation manual there. So right now, we'll move this aside and we'll go straight into, you know what? We'll go straight into tearing down a Strix 4090 and we'll do the install process. So here we have a white Strix 4090. I have taken this card apart before, so some of the wires may not be as neat as they were out the box in terms of a zip tie location or whatnot. But the concept is the same. To get the PCB out for water cooling, you don't need to take apart much. If you want to modify the cooler in any way, then you're going to take them over a lot more. So first off, I like to start straight from the back. You have two main screws here. These screws are attached to the cooler itself, not just the PCB. Okay, it's pretty much these on the here only attached to the bottom frame of the cooler, not to the cooler itself. So these will have to come out because you're gonna have to try to remove the backplate first. These screws are generally speaking the same length, so you shouldn't really have to worry about their positioning. So start with these. And for those wondering, the 4080 and the 4090 Strix coolers are not exactly identical. They're the same in terms of cooler, but the 4080 cooler does have a slightly different kind of design VRM bump or whatnot at the base of the cooler itself. But the cooler in terms of fin density and everything is exactly the same. The 4070 Ti Strix and I think the 4070 Strix use the same cooler. It is smaller than this card. Okay, so and for those of you that have difficulty, hold on, make sure I'm at a weird angle, but just want to make sure I'm not missing any screws. Okay, so this comes right off. Okay, for those of you who have difficulty fitting this card in your case because you're missing a little bit of space, this RGB section does come off. You can see that there's screws along the side here. Once you remove these screws and you remove the front cover, okay, after you have to take off the front, you will be able to remove this part off. And that gives you about, I want to say 6-7 millimeters if you needed it. Okay, so we don't need to bother with all that for the purpose of getting this card out. All you need to do is make first, there are a couple screws on the side. So you're going to want to undo these because they attach to the cooler themselves. Now, if you guys are wondering why my backplate here is not brushed like the other white Strixes, is because I put the best Strix I had onto this white cooler, which is one of the black ones I got. The white one was not so great. Okay, so now you have those removed. You can just go ahead with these, and they just kind of pop right off. Keep going. All right, so, and that's pretty much frees the card itself. You will have wires for the RGB in a second here, and the fans. So don't pull too hard. This should just kind of. There's going to be some. You're going to have some slight bonding due to the paste and the thermal pads. So it came loose. It's pretty much the pad that was holding it in place. So you can see, there you go. This is what I'm talking about. Once you get this off, you will have RGB cables like right in the corner. So you can see the pads are still on the card. So just let me yank these. These two are the fan ones, all right? And this one is the RGB one. So that takes care of that. Then you see, these stock pads are really sticky. I'd like to you could probably repad them. I probably will do that anyway, but for the sake of it, I will throw it back on the cooler for now. Some really sticky stuff. And that pretty much takes care of the card. So I'm going to clean this up, and then I'm going to put the block on. The Bitspower block, as I mentioned, already has all the pads applied, so that's going to save me a lot of time. Just let me clean this up, scoot this to the side, and we'll come back with the block. All right, so the card's cleaned up. I'm not super anal about cleaning it as best as it can be, but let's remove the screws on the back here. I didn't read the instruction book or look at the instructions, just so you guys know. So it's going to be a discovery process as I go, but these will definitely have to come out first. I obviously did not prep the right screwdriver heads for this. All right, so there's one. All right. Okay. And these two screws, don't throw them away, pretty much. They're just there to help the backplate stay in place. So once I take this off, I expect to have a lot of pre-applied pads I need to go ripping at. All right, so here we go. For my case, I'm not going to need this, so I will put this to the side. Okay. So I'm also going to put the card to the side. We don't need it at the moment. All right, and it's time to just do a lot of peels. So this is nice. You know, they do have tabs. Some of the smaller ones don't, so that's going to take more time. But this is easier than cutting pads, etc. Just be careful that they don't lift when you're doing this. I don't want to spend 10 minutes doing this on camera. So I'm just going to pause the video here and come back when I get all the pads off. So all the pads are off. Not the pads, I mean the pad covers. If you're doing the active backplate, this is the time to remove the rear terminal because you're not going to be able to use it anymore. I kind of wish the active backplate one was also acrylic and not acetal, so we would get this pure clear look. I'm not too sure why they chose to go with the black, maybe for the contrast. Unfortunately, it's not something I could machine myself. I mean, I could probably try it, right? But I don't think I would be able to do such a good job in terms of getting such a clear result and such a smooth result, because you know, obviously BP has extremely good machines. So, O-ring fell off. Let's keep that. I don't believe we will need to reuse these screws, so I'm not going to worry about those. But watch out for the O-rings when you take these things apart. Okay, so since all the pads are applied, I pretty much just have to drop the GPU on here once I get some paste, which I wish I had prepared ahead of time. Give me 1 second, guys. Shocking or not, I'm going to use Bitspower paste, which I hate it when these things dry off. Okay. All right. So I know some people like to do an X and all that, but I'm kind of lazy. I will just do 1X. I'm not going to do that triple cross, etc. Like always, once you get the card on, take it off, check for contact. This will save you a lot of time later on. All right, so I'm just going to drop this directly onto here and get closer. Okay, you can always kind of see if things are supposed to be where they're supposed to be. Line up the screw holes. All right, all the screw holes are lined up pretty much. Take a look from the sides, making sure the PCB is not bent, making sure things look like they are touching. So what I like to do at this point is I will screw in 4 of the screws in the middle, the main one's holding the GPU down, and then I will take the block off and I will take a look at it. So let's go ahead and do that. Is the right size? Nope. Sorry, I'm just prepping my screwdriver here, guys. Right, so straight away. I think it has to accommodate for some block height. Or we'll go all the way through. Okay, because there is a backplate normally here, so obviously the screw is going to have a certain height to it. I was wondering if it would actually sit all the way through. Okay, there we go. Something's not right. Okay, so let me see. It could be this bracket. This I/O bracket is taller than the block, as I'm holding my hand here. So I'm hoping this goes all the way through. Okay, it does go all the way through. This thread's a little tight too. Alrighty, so I'm just gonna screw the 4. Okay. Once again, the purpose of doing this is just to make sure that PCB is not bending in some weird way. And then when I take it off again, I'm going to know if I have improper contact on the die. So everything looks flat, right? Nothing looks off. Check the top, check the bottom. Everything looks good. So now we can take this out and see what it looks like. So a lot of the water block installs that end up having issues, like for example my Fantex 4090 block, when I put it on the second time, there was one pad that came out of place and it stacked on top of another pad by a little bit, and that caused me to have temperatures that were extremely poor. So always be careful that if a pad gets lifted, you put it back to where it was before. Otherwise you will get extremely strange temperatures because there's not proper contact. So I'm hoping all the pads don't get stuck to the card. Please do not get stuck. Yeah, there we go. It's already getting stuck. All right. Lift slowly. Okay. So one pad stayed on the card. That's fine. It's in the right place. All right. So just from those 4 screws, you can see I am making contact. Obviously, once you get all the screws on, you're going to get better contact. But overall, that looks okay for what it is. And I also have a back plate to contend. So that looks like it will come out okay. So I'm not too worried about that. So now I will put this back on. Sorry. Okay. Sure it is where it's supposed to be. Just looking for pads to make sure they didn't go loose from me doing that. Okay. So I'm gonna put this aside because the IO bracket. Now I'm gonna just remove these. This is easy. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so now it's time to do the sandwich. It's the best way to do this. Okay, so there are O-rings on this already, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay, so this is the part where I probably wish I read the instructions. But it looks like, all right, 1 1 4 4 2 2. This screw and this screw is not part of it, so I should be screwing at least. Wait, I should be screwing at least these 2 down. Okay. This screw's not part of the situation, not part of the equation here, so I should be screwing that down. Unless, did it come with a shorter screw? Just let me double check. Yeah, see, you should always be careful. It came with a shorter screw for those 2 situations. Obviously, if you read the manual, you'll know these things. But since I'm too lazy to go find the manual, I'm not going to. But like, this comes back to what I was saying earlier. The screws have a certain length. Therefore, if you're using a longer screw, you're not going to get the contact that you should get. So this is going to come here. Surprised I'm not using a washer. All right, so what else is missing here? Okay, this one. So use the 2 shorter screws for these, and I'm thinking that these screws, are these the same length? So this is M2.5 times 10, M2.5 times 6, M2.5 times 8. So because the block is longer, you're not going to be using the original screws anymore. You're going to use the longer screw. All right, so making sure that the O-rings make contact. Okay, let's just like so. And then come together like that. And that looks like it's, no, not lined up. Interesting. So it's like this. All right, so that looks like it's sandwiched correctly. Okay, what I'm gonna do now is, because the IO bracket is taller than the block, can't just drop it down. So I'm gonna hold it up in one hand while I do this. All right. As always, boys and girls, read the instructions ahead of time, so don't do like I do. All right, so let's see if that's touching. I can feel it. Don't tighten it all the way. You can come back and retighten. Okay. So I'm just putting them on loosely. And now I'll retighten them. Okay, so now that I got the main 4 on, I will do them tight. Remember, hand tight, not ratchet super tight. I've seen posts where people ask like, oh, what's the exact torque and blah, blah, blah. Okay, you're thinking too much into it if you're wondering about how much torque the screw needs. It's just finger tight. All right, so screw these on. All right, so obviously if you over tighten, you have a chance of cracking acrylic, damaging the card. etc. And you probably strip the screw before you get it too tight. And then that'll make it hard for you to take the card out. So don't do any of that. Almost done here. I feel like I have more screws. Okay, something's wrong on this side. This needs to come down. Okay. Yeah, doing it from the top view without it getting close to you, that screw's not making contact. Not grabbing. Probably because the other parts need to grab on first. You can hear that. Right. I don't know if you can hear that on the mic. It's making like this squeaky acrylic sound. Okay. So we will do these two. You can see them going into the offset. I mean, the standoff, not offset. So you can see what's happening. So if something is not going where it's supposed to be going, you can kind of see it right away. All right. The joys and pains of a magnetic screwdriver. Okay, there we go. So we have two more screws, and that would be these two down here. Now that most of the block is on, I can put it down. All right, so let's go into this one here. Okay, and one more. So these, I don't believe there's a specific in and out for the ports, but I believe on the founder's version of this block, they did specify in and out. But honestly, to me, I don't think there's a difference. Looking at how it's laid out. So there we go. That is the completed block. Once again, I'm going to check on the top for any bends of the PCB. Right? So I'm going to pull this closer. You can just do a rough check. If you have something that's bending, looking weird, you will see it immediately. So now I'm just making sure all the standoffs are in contact with each other. You can see that you can't see the screw, just standoff. That's what I'm checking for. Same for when I look on the bottom. I'm going to make sure the pads are touching as they should be and nothing is crooked. And for those of you wondering why there's a gap here, do you know how a lot of motherboards have a pretty beefy M2 heatsink? This is what this gap for. Unfortunately, if you have like an extreme motherboard from Asus, even though this card is for Asus, it's still for a lot like I think the Z690, X670E, Z790 Extreme. This is still going to be not enough. You're going to have to cut some more over here, I think. This depth is enough, but I don't think this part is enough. But in that, that's pretty much how it looks installed. So now we'll put it in. This will go into, so you can actually see, this is an interesting jet plate they put on top there. But guys, this is a beautiful block. Beautiful. Like just the clear acrylic is so glass clean. It's just a beautiful block. So, there's no RGB on the backplate. That's kind of interesting. I just realized that. But so what I'll do is I'll put some B-roll of this thing lit up and how it looks, and that'll pretty much sum up this video. If I had the performance part, it'll be in here. If not, it'll be in the V3000 build video that this is going into. But with that said, thanks for watching. Stay safe. Take care.